Alright guys, so we're on the second day of special right triangles, and today we're going to talk about 30, 60, 90 degree triangles. Now, with a 30, 60, 90 degree triangle, other than the 45, 45, 90, which you have two congruent legs and a hypotenuse, in the 30, 60, 90 degree triangle, you have three different parts. You've got a short leg, a long leg, and a hypotenuse. The short leg is always the one across from the 30 degree angle, and the long leg is always the one across from the 60 degree angle, whereas the hypotenuse is always across from the right angle. Now, there's a special relationship that occurs. Notice, now I know they've got S's here on our diagram. I really like to change those to X's because S's kind of look like 5s sometimes, so we want to make sure that we don't get confused with that. So we're going to make all of those S's X's. Sorry, guys. All right, so let's talk about this. There's a relationship that occurs, and normally when we're working 30, 60, 90 degree triangles, what we want to do is we want to find the short leg first all the time. First, it's got to be found. First. So if you're working with a 30, 60, 90 degree triangle, every single time you need to ask yourself, do I have the short leg? Do I have the short leg? Do I have the short leg? You need to find it first. If you have the short leg, fantastic. Then you can find all the other sides. But if you don't have the short leg, you need to find it first. Do I need to say it again? I'm pretty sure I got that in there. Okay, so we want to find the short leg first. So once I've got my short leg, okay, if I need, let's say I have my short leg, okay? If I have my short leg and I need to find my long leg, okay, if I need to go from the short leg to the long leg, here's what happens. From my short leg to my long leg, notice what happened. It changed from an x to an x squared to 3. We've actually just multiplied by a square root of 3. So going from a short leg to a long leg, you need to multiply. Hopefully that's not going to confuse you. That looks like an x, doesn't it? Multiply by the square root of 3. That's a multiplication symbol, guys. Sorry. So if I need to find the long leg and I've got my short leg, to go from the short to the long, you multiply by square root of 3. What if I needed to go from the long to the short leg? To go from a long leg to a short leg, I would divide by a square root of 3. So we're going to say from a long leg to the short leg, you are going to divide by a square root of 3. So really what I'm trying to say is the magic number, I call it magic numbers, the magic number for the long leg in a 30, 60, 90 degree triangle is a square root of 3. So either you're going to multiply by a square root of 3 going to a long leg, or you're going to divide by a square root of 3 going to the short leg. What happens if I've got the short leg and I need to find the hypotenuse? Well, if you've got the short leg and you need to go to your hypotenuse, you are going to notice it goes from x to 2x. You are going to multiply by 2. So we're going to multiply, that's a multiplication symbol, by 2. What if I know the hypotenuse and I need to find the short leg? If I know my hypotenuse and I need to find my short leg, you are just going to then divide by 2. So in the case for a 30, 60, 90 degree triangle, the hypotenuse has a magic number of 2. I call it a magic number. So if I know the short leg and I need to find the hypotenuse, I multiply by 2. If I know the hypotenuse and I need to find the short leg, I'm going to divide by 2. All right, so let's go ahead and put those rules to good use. We want to find x and y in each of the following examples. So in the first triangle we have, I noticed I've got a 30 degree angle here, so that means what's listed across from that is 3, and that is my short leg. And remember, you're supposed to find your short leg every single time first. Well, they gave it to me. Fantastic. So let's do this. Let's find out what x is. So I need to go from the short leg to x, and going from the short leg to the hypotenuse, it's going from a smaller measurement to a larger one, so I know I'm going to multiply. And the magic number for the hypotenuse, we said, was 2. So we're going to take the 3 for my short leg and multiply by 2. And when you do that, you get 6. So my hypotenuse was 6. Now, I never said about going from a hypotenuse to a long leg at all. You never do that. You always go back and you work with your short leg. So I know my short leg, and I need to find my long leg. So if I'm going from my short leg to my long leg, I'm getting a larger measurement. So I'm going to multiply and we're going to multiply by the magic number for the long leg, which is a square root of 3. So when I take 3 and I multiply by a square root of 3, I just get 3 square roots of 3. That's what y is. So that's our first example. Second example, notice in my second example here, I have y is across from 60, so this is my long leg. The x is across from the 30, that's my short leg, and the 8 is across from my 90, so that's my hypotenuse. So I have my hypotenuse. What do I have to find first? My short leg, right? So I have to go from my hypotenuse to the short leg. So I'm going from a larger measurement to a smaller one, so we're going to divide. And the magic number for a hypotenuse was 2, so we're going to divide by 2. So 8 divided by 2 ends up giving me 4. That's my short leg. Next, now that we have our short leg, which is phenomenal, you should always be using your short leg. So I use my short leg to get to my long leg. And when I go from the short to the long, I'm going from a smaller measurement to a larger measurement. So we're going to multiply, and we're going to multiply by the magic number for a long leg, which is a square root of 3. So 4 times the square root of 3 is just 4 square roots of 3, and that's what y is. Last example here, we have given 2/3, and that's actually across from my 30-degree angle, so that's my short leg, x is my long leg, and y is my hypotenuse. So let's go ahead and find out what my long leg is first. So I know my short leg, which is fantastic. We're going to use that to help me find my long leg. So going from the short leg to the long leg, we are going to multiply, because you're going from a smaller to a larger measurement, by the magic number for the long leg, which is the square root of 3. Now when you guys do this, if you take 2/3 and you multiply by a square root of 3, it's the same thing as multiplying by a square root of 3 over 1, in case that's tripping you out. So when you multiply fractions, you go straight across. So it's just 2 square roots of 3 over 3. You might be saying, well, is that reduced? Yes, it is. I don't have anything else that I need to do with this square root, because that's simplified as much as possible. There's no fractions in it, and I don't have any square roots in the denominator, so this is a perfect answer. Now let's go back. Let's use the short leg again, but this time let's go ahead and go to the hypotenuse. So if I go from the short leg to my hypotenuse, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply, because you're going from a smaller to a larger measurement, and we're going to multiply by 2, because that's the magic number for the hypotenuse. So 2/3 times 2 ends up giving us 4/3. So that's your answer for that one. So how about you try the next 3 of these on your own, and when you're ready, go ahead and pause the video, and then when you're ready, come back and I'll have my answers written down, and then I'll walk you through it real quick. All right, so let's start off with the first one. In the first one, I noticed that I was given my hypotenuse. So if you're given your hypotenuse, you need to find the short leg first. So going from my hypotenuse to my short leg, I'm going from a larger number to a smaller number. So I needed to divide, and divide by the magic number of 2. So if I took 2 divided by 2, I'd end up getting 1. That's what my short leg is. Now that I've got my short leg, I can then use that to find my long leg. And finding my long leg, going from a smaller to a larger value, you're going to multiply. Multiply by the square root of 3, because that's a magic number for the long leg. So 1 times the square root of 3 gives me the square root of 3. Next one, I've got 6 square roots of 3, that's my long leg. So if I've got my long leg, I need to find my short leg. So going from a larger measurement to a smaller one, so long to short, you're supposed to divide by square root of 3. Now, if you need to see that, 6 square roots of 3 divided by a square root of 3, easiest way of doing that is just to cancel the square roots of 3's out, because they're the same. So that's why I ended up getting 6 for my short leg. Then when I have 6 for my short leg, you just go ahead and multiply by 2 to get to your hypotenuse. So I ended up getting 12. The last example here for this one, I have the hypotenuse, and I need to find the short leg. So going from a hypotenuse to the short leg, you're going from a larger to a smaller, so we're going to divide, and we're going to divide by the magic number of 2 for the hypotenuse. So if I take 12, divided by 12 square roots of 3, divided by 2. If you think about it, 12 square roots of 3 divided by 2, the 2 and the 12 will simplify down, and that's why I was left with a 6 square roots of 3. That's what I ended up getting for my short leg, 6 square roots of 3. To get to the long leg, however, going from a smaller to a larger measurement, we're going to multiply by the magic number square root of 3. So if you take 6 square roots of 3 and you multiply by a square root of 3, I said take the whole numbers, so 6 times that 1 that's in front of that square root of 3, I get 6. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 gives me square root of 9, which is 3, so 6 times 3 gives me 18. Hence y is 18. So what happens if I give you an equilateral triangle, and then the side length and I ask you to find the altitude. Now remember, the altitude is the segment that drops from the vertex and is perpendicular to the opposite side. So the side length that we're being given is 11 square roots of 3. Now in an equilateral triangle, all three sides are the same. So I'm going to actually label this side right here as 11 square roots of 3. The other thing that you know is an equilateral triangle is actually equal angular triangle, and 60 degrees occur for all the angles. So this would be 60, this would be a 60 degree, and the top angle would be 60 degrees also. But with this altitude that we have in here, I would actually split it and make it a 30 degree angle. Notice, with an equilateral triangle, that altitude breaks this into two 30, 60, 90 degree triangles, which is awesome for us, because if I'm trying to find the measurement of this altitude here, that's actually the long leg in our 30, 60, 90 degree triangle. And I have the hypotenuse as 11 square roots of 3. So it's just a problem that we've been doing before. So if I need to go from the hypotenuse, I need to find my short leg first. So we're going to go from my hypotenuse to my short leg, and we're going to do that by dividing by 2. So if I took 11 square roots of 3 and I divided by 2, hey guys, I can't really do anything else. That's what it is. 11 square roots of 3 divided by 2. No simplifying. That's just what it is. Now that I've got my short leg, though, I can go from my short leg to my long leg, and when I do that, I'm going to multiply by a square root of 3. So when I multiply by the square root of 3, let's go ahead and take this 11 square roots of 3 over 2, and we're going to multiply it by a square root of 3. Multiplying by a square root of 3, it's the same thing as multiplying by a square root of 3 over 1, and when I multiply, I go straight across. So when we're multiplying, I get 11 times that 1 in front of that square root of 3. I get 11. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 gives me square root of 9, which is just 3. And then 1 times the 2 on the bottom ends up giving me 2. So I end up getting 33 halves. So that's my answer for, whoop, oh, that was horrible. Let's try this again. So I end up getting 33 halves for my altitude. Now, if you don't like that, could you end up putting 16.5? Yeah, as long as it's a nice decimal. So in this one, it's the same concept. However, this time, we're being given what the altitude is. They're telling me the altitude is 15. So I'm still working with the 30, 60, 90 degree triangle inside. What I would like for you to do is I would like for you to find out what the hypotenuse is, or this side of this triangle. So utilize what you've learned before about 30, 60, 90 degree triangles, and then try to find out what the side is. Pause the video, and when you're all set and ready, come back and we'll see if our answers are the same. Okay, so hopefully you ended up getting a side length of 10 square roots of 3. Let me run you through it. So we have the long leg here, and you always have to find your short leg first. So going from the long leg to my short leg, going from a larger value to a smaller value, we had to divide, and the magic number was square root of 3 for the long leg. So if I take 15 and I divide by square root of 3, I'm not allowed to leave that like that. So I had to multiply top and bottom by the square root of 3. When you multiply by square root of 3, I get 15 square roots of 3 on top, and square root of 3 times the square root of 3 on the bottom gives me a 3. Now I can reduce that even further because the 15 can actually take that 3 and divide, so we end up getting 5 square roots of 3. Hence our short leg for this triangle is 5 square roots of 3. Now, to get to the hypotenuse, you'd multiply by 2 because you're going from a smaller to a larger, so for short leg to a hypotenuse, you're going to multiply by 2. So if I took 5 square roots of 3, and I multiplied by 2, we just multiply the whole numbers together to get that 10, and the square root of 3 is attached. Okay, so I got 2 more examples. How about you try them on your own? And then when you're ready, start the video up again, and I'll have the answers written for you. So let's go ahead and take a look at these. In the first one, I notice that I have the side opposite of the 30 degree angle. So I have the short leg, which is fantastic, and I want to find the long leg. So going from a short to a long, you multiply by square root of 3. Now if you're thinking about this, if I took 4 square roots of 2 and I multiply by a square root of 3, take the whole numbers, 4 times the 1 that's in front of the square root of 3, so that's 4. And then the square root of 2 times the square root of 3 is just the square root of 6, and I can't simplify that down. So x is 4 square roots of 6. In the second problem here, you are given the long leg, and you need to find the hypotenuse. But we never, ever, ever go straight from a long leg to a hypotenuse because we have to find the short leg first. So my job, going from the long leg to the short leg, I have to divide by a square root of 3. So off to the side, I'm thinking, oh, 9 square roots of 3, divide by a square root of 3. Fantastic, those will just cancel, leaving me with 9. Hence why I have 9 for my short leg. Then, from the short leg to the hypotenuse, I need to multiply by 2. So that's why my hypotenuse ended up being 18. So for the last set of examples here, we're going to throw a curveball at you. Remember that when you're working with special right triangles, you always want to make sure that you pay attention to what type of triangle you're working with. In this instance, for the last 3 problems, you are no longer working with 30, 60, 90 degree triangles. So what we have learned today will not apply to these triangles. However, in the first day of special right triangles, you talked all about 45, 45, 90 degree triangles. So what I would like for you to do is I would like for you to apply your knowledge from the previous video, and I would like for you to try these 3 on your own because they're just a review. When you're done with them, you're going to go ahead, start the video up again, and then check the answers with me. All right, so taking a look. First one, had the hypotenuse on a 45, 45, 90, needed the legs, so we had to divide by a square root of 2. If you were to take 8 square roots of 6 and divide it by a square root of 2, remember, with the square roots, you're allowed to divide them. So 6 divided by 2 gave me a 3, so that's why it's 8 square roots of 3. In the next one, we are taking a look. We have a hypotenuse of 4. To get to the leg, you have to divide by a square root of 2. So if you did 4 divided by a square root of 2, you are not allowed to leave the square root in the denominator. So I need to multiply top and bottom by a square root of 2 to kind of rationalize this. So I get 4 square root of 2 over 2, and the 4 and the 2 will simplify and leave it as a 2 square root of 2 on the top. And the last one, all you had to do was go from the leg to the hypotenuse. So in the 45, 45, 90, multiply by a square root of 2, and you end up taking 3 square root of 2 times the square root of 2. 3 times the 1 in front gives me a 3. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 gives me a 2. So that's how I end up getting 6. If you have any questions on these, please let us know. Write them down, and we'll see you tomorrow.